Hi, everyone. I'm Sage Stevens. This is Stream and Hub Radio, and I am the host of Shout Out with Sage. Today, I have a great guest. He is big in the reality TV domain. I'm sure you have watched one of the shows that he has been behind. And today we have Rob Worsoff. Hi, Rob. How are you?
Hi, Sage. How you doing?
I'm good. How are you?
I'm good.
And so you're big in the reality TV world. What are some of the projects you've worked on?
Well,
or you don't like talking about yourself?
No, I like talking about them. Probably 35 to 40 shows, mostly failures. In the reality television world, most of them are failures, but some of the big ones.
Okay, why are they failures? Why are they failures?
Because I think a lot of the unscripted world, I think a lot of every part of the television world is networks playing roulette, right? They greenlight a lot of shows and then they pray that some hit and most don't and some do. I was fortunate enough to be the showrunner, director, and help develop basically the biggest cable television reality show in history, which was Duck Dynasty.
Right. And how did that come about for you?
Well, I was working at a place called Gurney Productions with Scott and Deirdre Gurney, and I had done a show for them called Auction Hunters.
Okay,
which
yes.
was a relatively successful show. I think it went for like 185 episodes, and then I did a pilot for them, which was about body painting in Vegas, which eventually became Naked Vegas, which was also a show that ran on the Travel Channel. So I had gone 2 for 2. And I think in 2010, I was the only guy at Gurney Productions that had a beard. So they were trying to develop Duck, and Scott pulled me into his office and showed me a sizzle reel he had cut together, and I loved it. So then I went to go pick up Willie Robertson and his wife Corey at LAX because we were going to have a dinner and discuss it at BOA in Santa Monica.
Okay.
And when I walked off the plane and picked up Willie and Corey, the first thing he said to me, he looked at me and he said, "You call that a beard?" And
it wasn't quite big enough.
Yeah, it was just like this, but he had a big, Louisiana beard. We went for dinner, we hit it off, and then we made the show.
And that's quite an interesting story. How he didn't exactly wasn't that impressed with you. How do you get talent at the beginning? Like, is it sort of like dating? Like they have to like you and you have to like them, or how do you get the talent for your shows?
I think that's a great analogy. Actually, I think everything in television is like dating. I think when you go to, when you go pitch a show, it's the same. And when in terms of like relating to talent, I guess, I think it's different on every show. I don't think there's any rules.
Okay.
Sometimes I've gotten along great with the talent. Sometimes they're very, very difficult. Sometimes that makes them great reality television characters, by the way. Sometimes
that conflict,
Yeah. Patty Stanger from the Millionaire Matchmaker was very difficult, but she was also very good. So
yeah, I've met her. I've worked some red carpets with her. So
yeah, and if you took away her ability to be that in real life, then you probably take away her ability to be that good on camera, right?
Right.
In the case of Duck Dynasty, I think I've done a lot of shows in the South, and I think they think that when they have a preconceived idea of Hollywood and that Hollywood's coming. They think Hollywood looks a certain way, and then when I show up and I have a beard and share a beer with them,
right?
Maybe I may be geared for more specific talent than others. I'm not sure.
Okay, yeah, like they feel they can relate to you. Is that what you're saying?
I hope so.
Yeah,
that's the goal.
And what other shows have you worked on? What other shows?
My big ones are Biggest Loser, Duck Dynasty, Millionaire Matchmaker, Dating Naked. I did a stint on Growing Up Hip Hop. I did a spin-off of Married at First Sight. Last year, I directed a show for Amazon about the Toronto Maple Leafs.
Okay, awesome. Being Canadian, that you are.
I wanna. That's right, Canadian represent.
Well, I see the Canadians behind you.
Yeah, that's funny. It's funny actually because I'm a huge fan of the Montreal Canadiens, but they sent me to do a docuseries about the Toronto Maple Leafs, which of course,
Yeah, that's a little conflict of interest, is it not?
Yeah. I have this thing called cansplaining, which is like mansplaining, but it's when Canadians explain things to Americans.
Right. Well, I've grew up in Canada as well, so I understand a few things, even though I've been gone a very long time. So
Oh, there you go. Where did you grow up in Canada?
I was in Toronto, mostly Montreal, Vancouver, but I was a figure skater growing up. So I remember not liking the hockey players, because there's always this animosity, I think, between hockey players and figure skaters. Because when you're sharing the ice, the figure skaters, we have our pick and and then they have to come out with a Zamboni and take all our pick marks and drag marks away. So it's nice and smooth for the hockey players. So they, nice smooth ice and just, I don't know, there's always this competition I felt between figure skaters and hockey players.
Are you saying that the figure skaters like the nicked up ice?
No, I'm saying that the figure skaters create the nicked up ice. And so when the hockey players come on to practice or play, they just are always, I don't know, it's always like this battle because we mess up the ice for them because it's not smooth.
Don't forget, some of the best hockey players that ever lived started out as figure skaters.
That is true. Actually, I have brothers and they figure skated and played hockey. So yes,
Right. Steve Yzerman, I think, started as a figure skater when he was a kid. Don't quote me on that, but I think so.
Okay. So yes. Well, because you learn, finesse and agility, like not just, skating down the ice and hitting people.
Sage, were you born in Canada?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Where?
Toronto.
Oh, no way.
Yes.
I didn't know that.
Yes. I think we talked about that a long time ago, but it was probably at some event or some party or something where we had a few drinks and maybe didn't remember.
Tracks. Certainly possible.
Certainly possible. So what are you working on currently?
That I'm not allowed to talk about, but I'm working on a
Okay.
I'm working on a pilot that I'm shooting in Mexico at the end of August.
Hmm.
And it's sort of a development deal, and we'll see if it goes.
And how does that work? Like, how long does it take you? Like, how do you come up with your ideas? Where do the ideas come from? And then when you do get something that you think is worthwhile, sort of what does that timeline look like?
That's a good question. I think for me, the pilot that I'm doing in Mexico, I was hired as a showrunner, so it's not my idea.
Okay.
I've been hired to sort of direct and showrun this pilot, so it's a work for hire. I do have another series of my own in development and one of the streamers. That's all I can say. It's a dating format.
Mm-hmm.
And that one, if I can give my 2 minutes on this, there's no such thing as reality television from the perspective of the people who make it. Because if you think about Duck Dynasty or the Kardashians,
Mm-hmm.
those are sitcoms that are relatively scripted.
Right.
Think about The Bachelor. That's a game show,
Okay.
right? It's like a formatted or Big Brother. Those are game shows. Then if you think about Ice Road Truckers or Deadliest Catch, people die on those shows.
Right.
So there's nothing scripted about Deadliest Catch. I mean, these are like fishermen flying off the side of a boat trying to get Alaskan king crab. And yet they're all called reality shows.
Right.
And that doesn't really make sense because, again, one's scripted, one's a dating show, one's a game show, and one's a...
Yeah, just like the modern versions of
real.
those. Yeah.
Right. So in my case, I think to answer your question, it's like when you get an inspiration for an idea. Well, if it's a docuseries, it's because you found a great piece of talent. Like, oh my God, this family of people are actually aliens, and I just signed them to an exclusive docuseries. And now you run to the network and go, I just signed aliens, and chances are the network's going to want to buy a reality show about aliens. I haven't found that yet, by the way, but I'm looking for it. So that would be one way to have an idea, which is, I mean, the most unscripted series start with attached talent.
Okay.
Either something that somebody's doing that is so absolutely outside the normal bounds of what you've ever seen before, that they're so interesting that it has to be on television, or somehow they're a celebrity that's big enough that anybody cares. In the case of formats, you don't have to have that, right? So for my dating format, I think I just came up with a hook that was different enough that the networks hadn't heard, and they were like, okay, let's try it. You know, I don't know that there's a rule. Most of my ideas come from being in the shower.
I actually read that there was some writer I was reading about, and most of their ideas would come when they were like, in the shower or driving or something.
Yeah. Because I think that's the only time where you're finding, like, you're just turned off of all your stuff, and
I think your subconscious, it's, you do all the work, like you're doing the work, you're doing the research and talking to people. But then when you're driving, I think what happens is that, like, your subconscious, because you're doing a ritual thing, and I think your subconscious sort of likes that, and it'll give you ideas. I don't know, because I drive, and I've gotten some great ideas that way as well. So
I agree. I think you almost have to. I think you're right. You almost have to turn off your brain a little bit to let that stuff bubble to the surface.
Yeah, exactly. Yes. Yeah. My acting teacher, when I was in a conservatory, that's how they described it. They're like, you do the work, you do the homework, be prepared. And then when you go up there, you have to just let all that go and let your subconscious sort of, or, just trust that you've done the work, and it will come to you. So I think writing sometimes is the same thing. You've sat there at the computer for a while, but those ideas, I think, need to percolate a little. Do they not? I don't know if you agree or not.
No, totally. I have a writing partner, and we've been writing a scripted series, and sometimes we're like on for 4 days in a row, and then for whatever reason we can't. He has a gig, I have a gig, and we don't reconvene for about a week, and I can be lying in bed like 4 days later and be like, wait a second, that doesn't make any sense. And I don't think if we were still in the zone that I would have been able to
step back.
Yeah, you have to. I think not doing stuff is as important to the creative process as doing stuff.
Right.
Although showering counts as doing something. It's sort of driving, I guess.
Yes.
It's something unconscious, I guess, is what I mean.
Yeah, it's a ritual thing that you sort of know. You know what you're doing, but you're not thinking too much about it.
Yeah.
I guess. I don't know. I'm sure someone has a theory on this. So for those people that don't know, can you explain to us exactly what is a showrunner and what does a showrunner do?
Yeah, the showrunner is sort of like the CEO of a very small temporary corporation. So what's funny about, just to backpedal for a second, you asked me, like, what's the process from the time that you like come up with an idea in the shower to the time that it's on the air? It's probably like 18 months, but most of it does not make the air ever. But if you're lucky and it makes it all the way through, what's weird about it is, the first month you might be casting, doing Skype interviews with people, just like this kind of.
Yeah.
And then the next month you might be pitching or planning or trying to get the money together or dealing, the next month you might be dealing with a legal issue, like getting people signed to a deal memo or a contract. Then you go in month 4 and you shoot like a pilot or a sizzle or a presentation. And then in month 5, the network is deciding, you're editing in month 5, and month 6, they're deliberating. In month 7, you're, legalizing the terms of things. You're in pre-production in month 8. You're in shooting in the show in month 9, editing, post, deliverables, media stuff. By the time you're done, every 18 months has been like a different job.
Okay.
Like sometimes my job is literally sitting in an edit bay with an editor for months on end. Sometimes my job is literally standing in the middle of the desert in 100-degree weather, trying not to die while we're shooting something. Most of the time, my life is sitting in my office writing outlines.
Okay.
So I think it's always different, but the general job of a showrunner is everything. You have to make sure, there's kind of three streams. There's the creative stream. I don't know how to turn that off on my computer. There's the creative stream, there's the sort of logistics stream, and then there's the financial stream. So logistics might mean everything from making sure that there's call sheets and a schedule and vans and lunches and somebody to collect receipts and to run it against a budget, to create a budget, to create a calendar. That's one. Creatively, you're writing outlines, you're trying to make sure you're liaising with the network, you're trying to make sure that it's in line with how they see it, and then you're going and getting those beats. You're actually going and shooting it with the camera guy, with an audio guy, with lighting, whatever. And then sometimes it's post calendars, dealing with editors, figuring out how that workflow is going to work.
Okay.
Generally, networks give you like a list of 100 deliverables that says we need this version, that version, this cut down. And so I think the job of a showrunner is to just try to spin all those plates and make sure that you're on top of any one of those things so that nothing falls through the cracks, or else you screwed up.
And can a showrunner get fired?
Oh, yeah.
Okay.
Showrunner has a massive target on his back or her back.
Right.
The issue is that, like, a lot of times in TV, in movies, generally, when somebody's an executive producer, it just means that they had something to do with the deal. They put up the money, or they, in TV, there's a bunch of executive producers, but one of them is the showrunner. And that showrunner does have a target. It's like being the head chef at a kitchen. You have to make sure that every salad and every fork and every soup and every steak is being dealt with. And when things if you do it right, nobody notices.
Right, exactly.
And if you do it wrong, anything goes wrong and people come ask questions. If those happen enough, they replace the showrunner.
Right. How did you end up into all this? How did you end up in TV and in reality, I guess? How did you end up all in this industry?
I went to Syracuse University to be a sports broadcaster.
Okay.
I graduated in 99, and I got a job as the weekend sports anchor at the NBC affiliate in the Redwood Forest. And I was driving out from New York to LA. I got to Utah, and there was a message on the machine back home. I didn't have a cell phone, by the way. And it was the Howard Stern people.
Oh, wow.
And they offered me a job as a production assistant at E!
Okay.
And I was standing in Utah, and I was like, well, literally, there was like a point at which it split off from like the 15 to the 10 or something. Not the 15 to the 10, but don't quote me on that. But
whichever it is.
One was continuing on the 10 or the 15, and one of them was went up north. And I said, well, LA is closer, and also the job at E! Was literally $50 more a week in Humboldt County. And I said, screw it, I'll just go be a PA at E! That sounds like more fun anyway.
Okay.
I came to LA and I was a PA at E! And it was right in August of 99. Matter of fact, it was 23 years ago yesterday. And that was pretty much the beginning of reality television as we know it. It was right when Survivor was about to come on the air. And I guess I was off to the races after that. I went to go work at MTV for a while, VH1. And I think that was just the era that I was in. When you say why reality, I never really intended to be in reality, but that was what was going on when I got here.
Okay. And so how was the Howard Stern show? What was that experience like?
Well, it's funny. I got hired at E! For that, but I ended up on Mysteries and Scandals. There was a mix-up, but I'm actually very happy because I was actually dragged into an office about a week into my experience at E! And said, you were supposed to be at Howard, and now you're on Mysteries and Scandals. Which one do you want to be at? And I chose Mysteries and Scandals in the end because I felt there was more upward trajectory. Like the Howard Stern people tended to be lifers.
Okay.
Like once you worked on one position at Howard Stern, you ended up never being there. So I got hired by the Howard Stern people to be a PA at E, but I ended up getting stationed. Do you remember the show Mysteries and Scandals with AJ Benza?
No, I do not. Sorry.
That's okay. That's okay. It was the only reason people remember it is because the host was standing often in the graveyard, and there was like smoke, and it was about old Hollywood, some old Hollywood, star that had disappeared, or there was some mystery around an old Hollywood star. But I did that for a year, and then I went off to a VH1 show.
Okay. And how did, going back to when you had those two choices, how did the Howard Stern show how were they aware of you? Like, how did that end up happening?
Well, that's a good question. I skipped over that part. When I was at Syracuse, we had to do what's called a capstone project, which is like a final thesis project. And I did mine on Hank the Angry Drunken Dwarf, who was a character from the Howard Stern show. My buddy Tom from New Jersey loved Howard Stern, and so he was calling Howard Stern every day to ask for permission.
Okay.
And eventually Doug Goodstein, who's one of the producers of the show, he called us back. We spoke to him.
Okay.
I was in like my college dorm room sort of thing. We spoke to him, and then we hung up the phone, and 2 seconds later the phone rang back, and it was him again, because he was trying to verify if we were not pranking him.
Right. It wasn't a joke.
I thought we were joking. And then we were like, no, we really are serious. So then we went and did that. We ended up getting to go to the Stern show, and we followed Hank around for a while. Hank died in 2001. But when I first got out to LA, I was his chaperone. They used to pay me in Banana Republic gift certificates. And
I guess you're always, well dressed at least.
Right. Yeah. And, that was it. And so they eventually said, do you want to be a PA in post? Because the show was out of New York, obviously, but the post-production was done out here in LA. So, Doug Goodstein and Scott Einziger hooked me up with a PA gig here. And then when I showed up at E, they like marched me to my desk, and it was on Mysteries and Scandals. And I was confused. I was like, I thought I was coming to work for Stern. And then about a week later, I got a call from one of the guys who runs E. His name is Gary Sokol.
Okay.
At the time. And he said, listen, there's been a mix-up. We put you in the wrong place. Do you want to go back over to Stern? I had been at Mysteries and Scandals for a week. And I said, no, I'm going to stay, actually.
You liked working there? You liked it?
I felt I could move up faster.
Okay. So it was just more like a strategic career trajectory for you then.
Yeah. I don't know what would have happened. I don't know, obviously, what happened to alternate Rob, but
to alternate Rob. Actually, hey, that's an idea. We should find that out and see what happens. It could be good, it could be bad. Who knows? Right. And what did your family think about you, coming to LA, and were they supportive of all this, or did they think you were like, what are you doing? What are you talking about?
No, my family was very supportive of it. I come from a family of TV and movie fans.
Okay.
And I think that they were supportive of the idea. I think it was tough because it's 3,000 miles away and in a different country. I don't look like somebody who wasn't born in America.
Right, I understand.
Sound like somebody who wasn't born in America. But at the end of the day, being a Canadian in America is still a foreigner.
Yeah, I understand. I went through the struggle myself. So when I tell people I'm an immigrant, they laugh at me. And I'm like, I might not look, it's the same. Like, if you don't have a social, you don't have a social. Like, hate to break it to you.
Exactly.
Like, there's a bit of a struggle there, but we won't get into
culturally closer, I think, to being American, because we're used to the same programming and the same clothes and the same products and the same time
language
zone.
Predominantly, unless you're French. Do you speak French?
I do. I speak French relatively fluently, but only because I grew up, like, I'm as French as you are, but I grew up in Quebec, so
Right. So meaning we're not French, for those people who don't understand the Canadian lingo there.
Right.
So what is your favorite part of the business? Like, what do you like the most out of now or the past, or however you want to answer that?
My favorite part of the business is for sure thinking something and then getting to see it. Mm. Like, I've created chaos because of that. Like, one time we were shooting a thing on Duck Dynasty, and it was a scene in the woods, and I said, I was watching it and I was like, there's no way this is going to be in the show. Like, we're wasting our time. Like, this isn't, I had written the scene. It was my fault, totally my fault. I had written the scene, and then we were shooting the scene in the woods, and I was like, this is garbage. This is stupid. There's no way this is going to happen. So I said, there was a bunch of people, there must have been 50 people around. And at one point I said, this is dumb. Let's just go over here and do the squirrel hunt thing. And like, before I wasn't even sure of what I was saying, by the way. I wasn't 100% certain that I was right.
Right.
And before I could finish my sentence, helicopters were moving, medics were moving, lights were moving, camera people, audio people, grips and talent. And all of a sudden I was like, what the hell just happened here? Like, it was incredible. It was like it's rare. It's very rare to be in the situation, but it's a really powerful feeling to be able to, what I always say about this? There's like, don't quote me on these numbers, but just to get the point across, there's 18 million people in Southern California. And I'm making this up, but I'm betting you like 3 million people think that they're in some way connected to the entertainment industry, or that they have a friend who's in the entertainment industry. And then there's like probably actually like a few 100,000 people that are in the entertainment industry. And of those people, it's mostly accountants and lawyers and agents and people who facilitated post-production facilities. How many people actually get to write stuff or think up stuff and then eventually get to see that stuff in real time? That's a great feeling. And it's such a great feeling that it's worth trudging through all the shit. How to say that?
Yeah, maybe not, but too late now.
All the BS,
right,
to get there.
Cool. And what's like the biggest hurdle for you, or what has it been so far? What do you feel about that? Like a big hurdle you've overcome?
Besides not knowing, I think if you grow up here, you have a big advantage. But I think, obviously the industry is changing a lot, and it's dangerous territory, because I think the biggest problem with 2022 is absolutely everybody is cultivating their victim story.
Can you? Yeah.
Every single person I know in some way is saying, well, it's harder for women. It's harder for LGBTQ.
That's what you meant. Okay.
Got you. People of color. It's harder for white guys. It's harder for people getting older. It's harder. Every single person counts themselves, whether they're male, female, black, white, straight, gay. Everybody is in some way right now feeling like, oh, the deck is stacked against me somehow. And so it's easy for me to say, what's the things that I've overcome? I think our industry is changing a lot, probably for the better. I think it's a good thing that it's happening, but I think in the ever-changing climate, I'm getting older, and there's less. I'm sure the majority of people who work in our industry are still straight white dudes. I'm happy to admit that, but that's becoming more and more frowned upon. So I feel that a little bit. And I guess the answer to your question would be surviving and continuing to be able to sell stuff and create stuff and keep going. I think the answer is to keep going.
Just to keep going. Awesome. Yeah. And would you like to give a shout out to anyone today, since this is Shout Out with Sage? Has there been anyone instrumental or pivotal to you so in your career so far?
Well, I think a million people.
Right.
I think all those little people along the way that helped and continue to help me. I mean, I got a series of small breaks. Like there's never any one big thing, but like Doug
Right.
from
each of the step leading to the next, right?
Yeah. My buddy Bill hired me early on when he had no business doing that. And he was instrumental in getting me on to Breaking Bonaducci, which ultimately got me to Biggest Loser and ultimately got me an agent. And you know, I think I don't think there's any one big person I can point to, but there's certainly hundreds of
people along the way. Right?
Yeah. I don't know if I've made any sense here today. Have I?
Yes. You gave us a lot of really, really interesting stuff and stuff I didn't know about the reality world, even though I've worked on a few little things behind the scenes production wise. So I sort of know, but obviously not as much as you, or as much as, as much as you. And I'm sure a lot of other people know even less than me. So yeah, thank you. Thank you for sharing your story and for being here. How do people find you? Do you have Instagram, or do you care about that stuff? Or
Yes, I have Instagram and I have Twitter, both my name, Rob Worsoff, at either one of them. That's actually my Facebook as well. But yeah.
Okay, cool. Well, thanks so much for joining us today on Stream and Hub Radio on Shout Out with Sage. So thanks, Rob.
This is so much fun. Thank you very much.
Oh, thanks. I'm glad you had a good time. Thanks.
Have a good one.
Okay.
Bye.
Thanks. Bye.